Hey, folks, welcome to the Leeds View podcast for the second podcast of the week. We do these twice a week, usually on a Tuesday and a Thursday, as well as daily Leeds United news from Monday to Friday and instant match reactions and reviews after each Leeds United game. You can find us on all the audio platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And if you're listening on those platforms, you can support us by following, liking, subscribing, and all of that good stuff. We've got a 8% off code with our partnership with okjersey.com. You can check that link out down below in your description. If you want to get some World Cup shirts for a World Cup summer, you can get all the details down there below on the discount available to you. I am delighted to be joined by Andrea Russo to take a little bit of a sharp right turn away from the topics of the week so far and not talk about a Leeds United match for a couple of minutes. We're going to have a deep dive into the Leeds United loanees. We tend to do the loan watch every single week. We wanted to have a bit more of a closer look at a couple of the Leeds United loanees, where they are in their contract status, what it's going to be like for them when they come back to Leeds in the summer, and how their season has gone on objectively at this point of the season. I couldn't pick a better person to be joined with to give some form of a balanced review of these players and their season so far than Andrea. Andrea, thanks for joining us on the show again. And how are you doing, mate? You well?
Pleasure. Yeah, I was doing well until you mentioned World Cup. Every time I heard the term World Cup, my heart starts racing because the playoffs are approaching, and honestly,
They are.
I know, not disrespect, of course, because I think the last time Ireland were in the World Cup, was a great team, despite what happened in Saipan. No, Saipan, sorry. No, not Saigon.
Yeah.
Saigon is in Vietnam. Saipan is in Japan. So, yeah, it was a great team, but... for us, it was a national tragedy, missing out twice. I cannot imagine the thought of last time we were in the World Cup. It was 2014, and I was 17. Now I'm 29. Yeah. So
wow.
I was
You just
used
always
to.
assume Italy are there because it's Italy.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. But the mental switch is not there yet. It hasn't been there yet. I remember when I was a kid, when we won the World Cup. I was in Mallorca, but before in the final, before I watch every game, with Italians, my friends, all the kids in the neighborhood. Then with my friends in high school when we were in Brazil in 2014, 2012, 2010 South Africa. I miss those days, honestly, and thinking about missing those again in the summer. Honestly, I don't want to even imagine that, because it's like losing. There's an Italian writer, actually, Federico Buffa, that says the World Cup has defined the years of our lives, and will define the years of those who will come in the future. And absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yeah, it's you've just mentioned Saipan there. It was 2002. I was working as a holiday rep on the island of Kos in Greece. That's how young I was at that point. I remember sitting on the stairs trying to do commentary with a friend of mine in English, because the commentary we had on the game in the bar was in Greek. And we could have won that World Cup if Roy Keane hadn't gone home, because we were that close to getting the easy run to the final. And it sounds mad to say it out loud. Ireland could have won a World Cup, but they would have had South Korea after they would have had Spain. They just lost out to Spain on penalties. So it was
I remember. Ian
good team.
Right?
Of all people, yeah.
One of the best free kick takers, actually, penalty takers too.
Yeah,
it's
honestly, with a cracking side, Damien Duff, Robbie Keane, with a brilliant side, Shay Given. What a side! The current side is not of that stock, but what the current side definitely do have is work rate and effort, and they're fighting their lives out for this. I just think the playoffs will be difficult for us, but yeah, it's been a long time. I remember I was 9 years of age in 1990 when we went to the World Cup in Italy, and then 94, and then 2002, and the bits in between as well. I was too young to remember the European Championships in '88 when we beat England. Did we beat England or draw with England? I think we beat England that one as well.
Italy, 1994. Yeah.
So yeah. Ray Houghton. Yeah, who would want the English now? Houghton did. Yeah. Sorry, lads. I'm sorry. I'll stop talking about Ireland and England. That's Jerry's stick. I have to leave that with Jerry. But yeah, we're gonna we'll see what happens. We'll see how they go. We are gonna cover for those who've asked already, we'll cover the Ireland games over on bigup.com as well during the international break, because we may as well. There's nothing else to talk about. We may as well. But yeah, that's the international break that always worries the crap out of me, Andrea. We get to that point and Leeds don't turn up straight afterwards, except this time around we'll have an FA Cup match straight after it. So at least we've got a buffer and a dress rehearsal with West Ham United before we get into that. But we've had 2 games potentially that West Ham could be without Chris Somerville. So we've got 2 weeks to maybe try and open a bit of a gap up if we can get some decent results.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's still very open, honestly. I'm confiding more in Spurs, honestly, than West Ham, to be fair, because absolutely what happened during the week in Europe. I remember when we talked about Tudor the last time I was on
You
the pod,
called this.
yeah, it's not the right person, honestly. I'm sorry. I actually like him as a player when he was at Juve and Croatia, especially because he was always a hard player, bringing the physicality. Also as a manager when he was at Marseille, Lazio, but right now at Tottenham, they haven't learned a lesson. They need to bring in a experienced manager from England, I think, knowing the Premier League. I saw Spurs, honestly, absolutely playing Kinski. Then after going
70
down with 2
minutes.
mistakes, you're not protecting the player for me. He's just turning him into a Loris Karius 2.0, honestly, for me.
Correct.
So I hope he recovers because he's a good player, Kingsley for me. But Tudor, if I was Spurs, I would have sacked him first
Keep
thing
him.
next.
Keep him forever. Keep him.
Yeah.
Keep him. He's doing a great job. Don't
Yeah.
let him go because they're looking at apparently Sean Dyche has been lined up to come in. It's like, don't bring anybody in there that will get a couple of results. Just leave it.
Tudor is doing well. He's doing well.
He's doing great. Leave him there. He's brilliant, man. What a manager. Keep him there as long as you possibly can. We don't need another team getting a turnaround of form now at this stage of the season. But yeah, or at least until we've played them. Then you can do what you want. Then you can knock yourself out. Go crazy. Right. Well, let's talk about the Leeds loanees. We're going to cover a couple tonight. We're going to cover Joe Gelhardt, Matteo Joseph, Larry Ramazi, Isaac Schmidt, Max Wober. I mean, that's going to be a short one. Harry Gray and Jack Harrison. We're going to just look at how the loans have gone for them so far, where they sit, and what the potential looks like for them coming back to Leeds United in the summer. Just been talk with more detail on the Larry Ramazi stuff. Leeds have got a few quotes starting to eke out once they're validated. We'll cover them as well. Around Larry Ramazi, he's been talking to the Spanish media as well. So it's going to be very, very interesting couple of months for those players. But Andrea, before we get into the individual players, we've heard that Leeds have got a potential £100 million budget for transfers this summer, which is great. If they can sell players, which they have really struggled to do, is to sell players for a decent amount of money, you would look at these loanees and think these are where they could get these are the low-hanging fruit to try and offload, get off the books, get a few quid in, and bolster that 100 million with a few extra quid to try and stretch it a little bit further come the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. But like you said, Jer, it's always proven difficult to, especially sell or loan out. Look at the last 3 seasons. How many times we had to loan out players because they were on very good contracts made under the previous ownership, majority ownership. I want to underline that because, of course, there was already a structure where we had Radrizzani and as minority owners, also the 49ers, but of course the hierarchy in charge of the club had been appointed by Radrizzani at the time. So when they renewed certain contracts, it was difficult then to find a buyer after relegation for these players. There's some of the players that are still under contract with Leeds, like Max Wober, for example, Jack Harrison. All these contracts were made in the Premier League under very good money. So if they are not performing, it will be, again, very difficult to sell them, especially because if some of them are in the last year of their contracts, of course, you maybe find a buyer, but for an even lower fee, so we will register that anyway for me, but you will register an even larger drop in the value, of course, compared to how much you spend when you got the player back then. But yeah, we just have to hope that some of the players, because some of them, of course, are not the stars of their teams, but some of them are starting now to at least get a look in Germany specifically. Then I don't want to mention names now because we want to keep that for them specifically. Yeah, I just want to throw in basically. And in Spain now they're starting to gather a bit of momentum, in the last run of games. But others are not finding a lot of are not helping us to protect their value or raise their value in order to look for a sale. So I have a fear, and the fear is it's not necessarily a negative fear in a certain sense for certain players, but I think we'll see. We'll have to come with peace with the fact that we may be forced to sell some of the players that are starring consistently on our side this season, because I think it's also natural, to change. It's probably the mistake that we made the last time we stayed up with Bielsa. Some of these players had reached their potential, their maximum potential. After that, probably was the right time for some of them to move on. We decided to keep an aging group for some of them, to trust them, when instead it was the time probably to change more of them, or at least bring in changing them from a starter role to backup veteran earlier than it happened. I love Luke Ayling, for example, but eventually Luke, or even Liam Cooper, they are absolutely legends for me in my heart of this recent era. But eventually, if you look at that, Ayling went when we won the championship, and Liam Cooper, he stayed till 2 seasons ago. So they had already finished for me their cycle at Leeds, but we were so attached to them that we didn't want to let them get away, probably, and that was probably in hindsight, in retrospective, probably a mistake. So that might happen again. I'm even thinking about Ilya Gruev, honestly. I think that might be the name, or Reo Tanaka, some of the players that were crucial when we went up.
Yeah.
But sometimes it needs to happen, unfortunately, because football has changed, and in the eyes of executives, it should be in the eyes of executives business.
It's one of those things that comes up regularly, where it's, if your favorite player gets sold, it'll be, where's the loyalty? Where's the loyalty? The player didn't want to go, he was happy. Where's the loyalty? And then our player himself will turn around and go, I want to leave. And the question will then be, well, where's his loyalty gone? Where's his loyalty to the club? And it's funny because, I grew up in an era where use Wolverhampton Wanderers as an example. Steve Bull played his entire career for Wolves, and he was a one club player. Gary Kelly at Leeds, one club player. That'll never happen again in football, because loyalty doesn't exist in football for lots of reasons, not just on the club side, but also on the player's side. So from a club's perspective, you've got to work so hard to maintain your spot, and staying in the Premier League is absolutely everything. And you do have to monitor players and go, when is the right time to move that player on, where the money we'll receive for them can be reinvested into the club to help us bring the next player in that either moves us up a level or keeps us exactly where we are, and we don't drop down a spot. And that will ultimately eventually lead to some of your favorite players leaving the club, because it's never easy. And we've seen some of our favorite players walk out the door, but it's the reality of football. And then you've got players who don't necessarily have the same connections to clubs that they used to have once upon a time. And it can be very transactional when it comes to a player. Like, I will kiss the badge, I will thump the shirt, until that club 4 places above you offers me twice the salary and a bigger transfer fee or signing on fee. And then maybe I want to go and play in Europe, So you're stepping stones as well. So a lot of that can get fixed by Leeds over the next couple of years, establishing themselves as a Premier League club, pushing up the league into those European places eventually, if they can do that, and establishing themselves then as a top side within the league. And then all of a sudden, you're not a stepping stone club anymore. And because these players don't know the history of the club, they're not married to it the way that we are. So it swings both ways. But from a Leeds perspective in this season, the sentimentality will need to go away come the end of the season. We will have to, as you've already pointed out, learn from the mistakes of the season when we went up the last time and go, okay, who in this squad has reached their peak? What positions can we upgrade? Where are the easy wins here? And you don't want to get on the route with Villa, where you have to sell one of your better players every year in order to balance the books, or try and bring different players in to fill that gap. You've got to box smart, and we've struggled with that. Like, Ilham Melia will leave the club for free in the summer because we didn't offload him 2 years ago when he was his stock was probably close to his highest. The year before, probably higher. Joe Pirro will be the one this summer when he comes into it. Like, do we hang on to Joel for another year, or does he go? There will be other players, Didier Grooves and Tanakas that you've mentioned as well, may end up going, because Leeds may look at it and go, well, we can increase the money we spent on them from PSR perspective, bring in that available cash, and upgrade that position with either better players, or give us more money to spend elsewhere on the park and fix problem positions. So it's all a factor. But these loanees, the ones that are out on loan right now, we'll start off with Joe Gelhardt.
Yep.
And these are the ones where Leeds would be hoping go play well, get loads of minutes, maximize your potential. If it goes well, for some of them, if it goes well, you can come back in and fight for your place in the squad. And for others, if it goes well, you'll increase your value to us and we can sell you for a profit. So the obvious one to start with in that situation is Joe Gelhardt, because Joe's having an absolute banger of a season for Hull City. He's shown the potential that we saw under Marcelo Bielsa. He's playing in a 10 role, sometimes playing on the right-hand side. He's got 13 goals and 4 assists in the league this season. He started 27 games, played 30 league matches overall, and he's had an absolute whopper of a season. Hull have been very clear on this. They want him at the end of the season. Their transfer embargo is expected to be lifted, and they want to bring him in. Now, at the moment, the percentages on this, by the way, the average rating, the percentages, and the estimated value are coming. The estimated value is coming from Transfermarkt, and the averages are coming from SofaScore, if you're wondering where we're getting that detail from. So at the moment, he's valued at anything between 5 and 8 million. That's possibly gone up a little bit given the season that he's having right now. He is the obvious one. He'll have a year left on his contract when he gets back at the end of the season. He'll be into his final year. And that's when Leeds, apparently, all the noise is Leeds will look to sell Joe Gelhardt this summer. What are your thoughts on this being his season being this year, as well as what the goal is for Leeds in the summer with him?
Well, first and foremost, I'm very, very happy for him, honestly, because we've seen the type of player he could have been in the Premier League too, during that season when first Bielsa introduced him, then when he played that part, when we stayed up, when Marshall arrived, I remember when he was following the play. Rafinha basically mastermind did that goal against Norwich. Norwich is always linked with us in a certain sense, But yeah, he was showing a lot of promise. I remember that they were comparing because, of course, the common origin from Liverpool to a young Wayne Rooney at the time. There was also a lot of pressure on Leeds youngsters at the time because we had Greenwood, Gelhardt, then Lewis Bate. All of them were poised in a certain sense for big things. Were lined up for big things. So I think that pressure eventually eroded all of them.
Stroke and Melia are part of that group as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to point out that, because even Melia at the time, the first season under Bielsa was absolutely under Bielsa in the Premier League, of course, excellent. There were rumors about the succession of Lloris for France. I remember that it was rumored for a call up. Look at him now. It's mental how these certain seasons, can turn out to be sliding doors for certain players. I'm thinking about Balotelli, for example. Look at the career he had, the choices you make. So I'm very pleased for Gerard because he worked hard and he adjusted, eventually found a team that plays him to his strengths, that trusts him, because it's the second time, of course, he goes there. He had an opportunity, but it wasn't the right opportunity when he was loaned out. Eventually, too late for me because he needed to get out earlier because he wasn't getting minutes that season at Leeds. So they need to do that loan to Sunderland probably in the summer. When he went there, I think Ross Stewart was injured, got injured. Then he was played as a false 9, and he's not his position. He's like now second striker 10 for our City, and he's turning to be a very good reliable championship player. Of course, are in the playoff places that can still challenge for the second spot. Will be tough because the stuff of position, there's Ipswich, of course, Coventry, Middlesbrough are now leading, but also Wrexham. There's a lot of teams that have spent money actually, unlike Hull with the transfer embargo. But the reasoning is right, honestly. I won't necessarily, of course, they will try to sign him on a permanent, but as he's returning to Leeds, honestly, I will try to maximize because I think he's a championship player at the minute. So I will try to maximize that. And of course, you will have interest by maybe Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
If I still keep saying if they go down.
Down.
Yeah, I know. But after what we've seen from Leicester winning the league and years ago Salernitana and Crotone in Serie A staying up when they were basically already down, I'm being conservative in that regard. But yeah, yeah, anything can happen, but yeah, it's very unlikely that they will stay up. But yeah, I'm thinking about one of these teams that will miss out on promotion. Maybe one of the relegated sides. I think they will try to sign Gelhardt because he's proving to be a very reliable player. Similar to in the championship, Sami Smodic, to
Yeah,
Adam Armstrong, these type of players, they are very required. So he will have plenty of offers, and we need to sell to the best. Uh,
yeah. The
but
the,
best
the
one,
more clubs interested in, the better for us, because the
Yeah,
more clubs interested in, the higher the book value goes up, and these can make more money.
yeah, absolutely. That's good reasoning, good planning.
Yeah, the rumor in the summer was Leeds wanted £5 million from last summer. Apparently, that hasn't really changed. But if more clubs get involved, his estimated value according to transfer market is 8.5 million pounds. I
Yeah,
suppose you're worth whatever somebody wants to pay for you. So either way, it would represent the PSR or an SCR next season profit for Leeds United. So it's spendable money when it comes in straight away. So that would be good. From the positive to the slightly more confusing, and
yeah,
that's Matteo Joseph. A lot of the stuff, and I said it in the news today, a lot of Matteo Joseph's future will be dictated by him on how he wants to approach the summer himself. This season, he's started 17 games for Real Mallorca, played 26 overall. His average is 6.6 rating according to SofaScore, but that's an algorithm, so don't take that as everything. He's
yeah,
got 2 goals and 2 assists. 2 goals came in the same game, and he's got an 8% goal conversion rate. He's missed 6 big chances this year, but his contract at Leeds runs until 2028. And again, his estimated value according to transfer market is £8 million. Now, Real Mallorca currently sit 18th place in La Liga. They're in the relegation zone by a point, or above the relegation, zone by 1 point. So they're clearly looking over their shoulder. It's not easy for an attacker to do well in a side that's struggling in the league. They're not getting as many chances, but he's played plenty of minutes this season. He has been playing as a wide right player more often than not. He was played through the middle in the last 2 matches, and I did watch one of them, and he wasn't brilliant. And he was taken off just after the halftime break. It's going to be a weird summer for him because Parag Morate apparently sees a future at Leeds, and Matteo Joseph and quite likes him and thinks there's a good player there. He's shown it in fits and starts at Leeds that he can be a very, very strong striker. He's got good positioning. His front post run was something that I was very fond of. I think his timing of that front post run and his ability to finish from it is very, very strong. But there's everything that happened in the summer, refusing to go on pre-season with the team, potential falling out with the manager. There's no option to buy in his contract. So Leeds made a very clear decision. You're going to play minutes and increase your value or get better and come back. It's going to be a weird summer for him again.
Yeah. The remake of last summer. Honestly, if I look at the places, I know Mallorca have good funds. They also have a lot of tourism in that island, so there's a lot of that's why people investors have decided to invest in Mallorca, especially for the tourism destination that the Balearic Island had, so they attracted the investment from over the pond, in the past. I remember when Steve Nash was also the former basketball Canadian player was investing in them, also a Mexican entrepreneur, I remember. But there's a reason why Mallorca are, by the way, if I look down at the table, Real Oviedo, Levante, Mallorca, then just aside Elche, Alaves, Girona are slightly above them, but above them, honestly. Yeah, they are also in the circuit of the City Group, so I think they won't have problems staying up. They are a good side. It's just one of these seasons for Sevilla. But if I look at this side, honestly, Mallorca among them, Alaves, Elche, Levante, Real Oviedo, they are the best one out of the bottom 5 in La Liga. So they shouldn't be in that position. The problem is that the only player that has scored goals for them has been Vedat Murici, the striker that plays alongside the experienced striker, the Pirate, it's his nickname, that plays alongside Matteo Joseph. So Mallorca, because remember that Betis was involved too in the summer, they wanted him to, but weren't serious in the end when they needed to step up their interest. So he decided to go to... yeah, exactly. Like with Firpo, eventually they got
everybody.
Llorente,
Roca.
Yeah, it's not a good But even with Sevilla, for the previous link that was there with Victor Orth, it's not
Yeah.
good to deal with the
No.
Seville clubs. Don't do that
No.
anymore. But yeah, Joseph, I think Mallorca really trusted him. They really expected big things from him, especially because I always keep saying this, but senior football is not youth football. He was doing very well from Spain under 21s. I think the fact that he wasn't sent to the Olympics played a part probably 2 years ago. Eventually was the right decision from him at first hand, because he started as the starting number 9 last season for Leeds, right after the Olympics. So he had a good preseason. Falke decided, okay, that's my starting number 9 ahead of Pirot. But then he didn't perform, lost his place. And from then when he had chances, he didn't take them. He wasn't, he saw his minutes reduced, I think the attitude when he had opportunities wasn't there, I think he lived a lot off that performance against Chelsea in the FA Cup 2 years ago now. But eventually, okay, he played a lot of minutes. He's been playing because they don't have a lot of alternatives up front, apart from Morici. But he was poised or lined up to be the second GA provider for Mallorca when they signed him for me. Because when you're playing a striking partnership of two players, Joseph and Morici, you expect them to be the ones scoring the goals to keep you up. But I don't think their target for Mallorca was, okay, let's just stay up. I think they wanted an easy mid-table finish, probably looking for, okay, maybe if it's a good season, we can even, and we already say we can try to do that.
Yeah.
So I think Matteo hasn't helped himself in a certain sense because he's not having a brilliant GA season at Mallorca. He's playing, but a lot of ups and downs. Been playing because they don't have many alternatives up front, like I said. But when he's returning to Leeds in the summer, he will return as the player that didn't want to join the team in preseason in Germany. As, like we say in Italy, burnt his bridges, doing that. So it will be difficult because he will returning after a not brilliant season, a not very good season, an impressive season at Mallorca. So I think at best, because it was his first one in La Liga, Leeds, they won't find a buyer for me. That's the mentality I'm in right now, the state I'm in, where I'm at. So I think the best solution might be, because he has 2 years left, a loan to a championship club for me.
I would agree. I'd keep him in England, keep him at that level, let him get used, because there's no point in going off and playing in a league. I mean, he could go to Holland or he could go to Austria. It's not going to benefit his development when it comes to England, assuming he wants to play in England. But again, I just think it's a really bad idea to refuse to go on training camps. It's just to refuse. I mean, Willie Nanto saw the issues that he had. Whoever advises these players to essentially go on strike and not go. No, I'm saying essentially go on strike because he was still training at Leeds. But to refuse to go or say, I'm not in the right headspace to go on the tour, whoever advises them to do that and force moves is advising their players incredibly badly. It is so hard to come back from that. And it is a stain on your record for any potential club that looks to you in the future. Because I look at lots of people. I did it in my previous job as a trainer. I've used it as a coach. The attitude is the number one attribute that every single club looks for. You look at the Leeds United dressing room they've got right now and how strong that dressing room is. It's massively important. So if the first question is, what's his attitude like? Well, he didn't go on training camp and he refused to go out the squad. Well, that's not a great start, and that might haunt him. So he's got a bit of work to do. The Chelsea game was interesting because that shows us what he is capable of when he's focused, when he's on it, and when he's determined to make an impression. It's there. His runs that night were very good. His overall gameplay was very good. But it's, you've got to do it again and again and again. You can't just do it in one game and live off that, as you said. So it's going to be a tricky one for him. Yeah, burnt bridges is a great way of putting it. It'll come down to him. I don't be surprised if we get another summer of Real Betis sniffing around them because they'll see a discounted player there somewhere, and they do love a Leeds United discount. So it's going to be an interesting one. The next one, and probably the one that's you talked briefly about at the start, saying certain players are coming into form at the moment in Spain. This is probably the number one, and it's largely Ramazi. Valencia is starting to get players back from their extensive injury list that they've had this year. it's coincided with them moving up the table in the 12th position now. They're now 7 points away from relegation and only 8 points off Europe. So they're firmly slap bang in the middle of the table. And Ramazani's had a hell of a renaissance, if you want to call it, mid-season. He's come back from the injury issues he had. He's started to get minutes. Carlos Corberán's talked extremely positively about him over recent games, about his attitude and his commitment. He's got 4 goals, 3 of which have come in his last 5 games. He's got an assist, which came in his first game. Only started 4 games this season, but 16 in total. A lot of that is due to the fact that he got injured pretty early in the season. His estimated value is anything between 5 and 10 million pounds. Leeds paid 10. They would like to at least recoup 10. But there does appear to be, I'm not going to say a falling out with Daniel Farke, but he appears to be one of those players that makes a mistake in a game and Daniel Farke decides that's it. You know, we had that one where he ran across the pitch and lost possession in the middle of the park. You've seen Tanaka this season, similar. He doesn't track a run and barely kicks a ball. Since then, there's moments with certain players with Daniel Farke, and it seems unlikely that he'll come back into the side. But he's got a good record in Spain. Before we bought him as well, he was very solid in Spain as well. But he's having a very strong finish to his season, if nothing else. And then he would, I would guess, likely be one of the players Leeds would want to move on in the summer. If you like Larry Ramazani and you think he should stay at Leeds, it's absolutely fair and valid. I quite like Larry as well. I think we're talking about the fact that what would Leeds do and what are Leeds likely to do in this scenario.
Yeah, I like the player, you know. I think the best season he had was at Almeria when they got relegated 2 years ago. But even there, you know, the GA compared to the number of minutes and even starts, you know, because he wasn't starting every game. It was a situation similar to Matteo Joseph, you know, in a certain sense. But even that season, you know, Lamrazani was playing in certain games as a falso 9, a false 9, you know. So it was a positive season, GA related, leading actually to the interest of Leeds, you know, bring him into England. The problem with Ramazani for me is that he's a very injury prone player because last season he had started well with Leeds, then got injured, and his trajectory changed eventually because after that there were players ahead of him, Manor Solomon, and then James performing better than Ramazani and Willy Gnonto. There was strong competition. Sometimes it happens, you know. I know people like Ramazani. There was this debate last season. He's not playing Ramazani because, of course, people like when they see a player like Rafinha type, you know, who likes to take
Exciting
his man
player.
on, you know. Yeah, exactly. My worry when we signed him was, will he adapt to the different intensity of English football? Because I think he's better suited to La Liga because there's less intensity, the technical ability emerges more than transitional football. You know, is more 1v1 football in a certain sense, without double teaming, without the pressure. You know, there's not a lot of pressing in La Liga compared to England. So it's a tricky one because the player, of course, has talent. The other thing for me is that certain people are considering him because he looks very young, but he's 25, you know, but he like a 17, 18, like a youth player, you know, like a player that still needs to develop. I think he's already that type of player, you know. Yes,
He's coming to his peak years now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 26, 27, 28 year peak years, like.
Yeah, exactly. It's edging toward his peak. But the thing is, for 2 reasons, he's very injury prone because even this season, before the last 4, who actually were against Alaves, then Osasuna, Villarreal, and Levante. So, of course, if you look at that, now the difficult part will arrive because they faced all direct rivals or at least teams in their zone, you know. And he emerged because the first time he got a start, he scored. Then they kept him in the team. Corberán kept him in the team, and now he's playing on the left. Can also play on the right. Playing on the right to this season. So he's earned his place in this team now. Now he needs to keep it up because the 4 goals that we see on the graphic have been scored in the last 4 games. Which coincidentally are also the 4-1 that he started. So hopefully he can change the trajectory. He has also talked, you know, and made an interview. Had an interview when he said Valencia can challenge for Europe. Of course, if you look at the table, they are 12, like you said, Gerard, 32 points, and Europe is at least the Conference League, you know, 40. So it's right now it's 8 points. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult for me because you have Real Sociedad, Espanyol doing well, Athletic Club are not doing very well. But yeah, regarding the next summer, because if we return at Leeds, honestly, if he does well in La Liga, maybe Valencia will try to sell him on a permanent. Maybe other teams will try to sell him, but I think my main fear with Ramazani is that he is more suited to Spanish football because of the intensity, different distances compared to English football, because he's a very 1v1 player where he stays wide and he has one man to take on and he doesn't have the double team, The level in La Liga is also dropped for me. Not technically, but in terms of the intensity, the level of football, because you look at Barcelona, Atletico, and Real Madrid, they are the three top clubs, big clubs. But neither Real Sociedad are not doing well this season, apart from the Cup, where they have reached the Copa del Rey final. Athletic Club are struggling, Villarreal, ups and downs, and now they have recovered now in the UCL places. Valencia, a fallen giant, Betis, all these clubs, I think even when they are near Europe, their level of the squads have dropped. Look at the difference last season in the final between Chelsea and Real Betis, for example. So I think we'll have shooters from Spain, and I'm edging towards accepting that, despite the fact that I remember an interview from Robbie Evans where he said that basically Ramazani still has a future at Leeds, but I don't know. He hasn't been proved. He's not a proven Premier League player. So if there's an opportunity PSR wise, I think La Liga might be a good destination for him, honestly.
Yeah. I think if Leeds stick with the current system as well without playing wingers, I think that probably plays into their hands with that as well. And we talked about this before we came on, I think Daniel Farke is itching to get back to 4-2-3-1, in which case the wingers will come back into the four at some point. But yeah, I'm not so sure. His injury wise is interesting. Yeah, he's missed 7 games this season from injury. Missed 4 for Leeds last season, and he missed 9 the year before that, one clear season before he joined Leeds, and the year before that he missed 9 games from injury. So yeah, for a young enough player, he's missing enough games, and then you've got obviously recovery time after that as well, where you're not starting games. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but he's doing well right now. His manager Carlos Corberán, full of praise, but as you say, they've got much more difficult games coming up in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll have to see if he can step up to that level. The next two will be quick and short because these have not worked out at all. Isaac Schmidt at Werder Bremen. There's been moments this year where you thought it might be working. Scored on his debut for Werder Bremen, but he's only started 5 games. He's found himself back on the bench in an unused sub in the last couple of weeks. 15 games in total. Has a contract that leads till 2028, but there is an option to buy in his deal with Werder Bremen. Whether they decide to action it or not remains to be seen. His market value is pretty cheap. He was brought in very late in the transfer window year, not last summer, the summer before last, by the recruitment team. I'm not so sure whether it was Daniel Farke choice or not, or here's a backup fullback that you were looking for. Hasn't played a huge amount of minutes. Played predominantly left back for Werder this season as well. So in and out with our side. But I would imagine if Leeds can get any kind of money for Isaac Schmidt in the summer, they'd probably bite someone's hand off.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because I remember last season when he was introduced in the second half. In one game, maybe all, I don't remember the opponent, but basically was playing as a winger in that
winger, yeah,
a couple times games, yeah, a couple of times. But yeah, he's established now as a bench option. He plays a lot off the bench, which is already an improvement compared to the start of the season when he had seen his minutes dropping. At least now he's a bench option. He's regularly introduced, but I struggle to see honestly Werder signing him on a permanent. First, they need to stay up. I honestly think that they might actually not Werder necessarily, of course, but Leeds might look at the Bundesliga next summer because, of course, he hasn't proven that he can be a starter right now in the Bundesliga. But you know how it works. That there's the 50+1 rule. There were basically the shareholders, the members, not the shareholders of the club,
are
the fans.
Yeah,
that they have the veto on basically not everyone, but every decision, almost every decision made in the club. and it's done in order to prevent like majority owners or big groups to dictate and change the shape of a club.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm looking at Schalke. Schalke, I think, will get promoted,
Yeah.
or even another team that gets promoted from the Zweite Bundesliga. I think might be a good solution for Isaac Schmidt. Otherwise, because he's also played 5 games for Switzerland so far, despite not being a regular starter at Werder Bremen, like we see in the graphic, 5 starts and 15 appearances as a sub. Looking at young boys in Bern or Basel or Zurich, the giants of Swiss football.
Swiss football.
Or even in Austria, like RB Salzburg, we know that we have a link
We do, yeah.
as Red Bull invested in Leeds. I think these might be good destinations for the player. Of course, he's not having a future at Leeds for me next season because how can you justify? Of course, we'll need to sign for me another left wing back or left back.
Yeah, we do.
As a backup for Goodmanson, yeah. But I don't think that backup is Isaac Schmidt, honestly.
No, well, I will say about Isaac Schmidt is he had the attitude piece down to a T. Anytime he played for Leeds, he gave everything. I think we saw in the preseason when he was playing his natural position as a fullback from the starting games where the weaknesses were in his game. He had an awful time against Noah Okafor when he was playing for AC Milan for a couple of minutes before he switched sides. So, yeah, nothing against the guy. I hope he gets a club. I hope he plays lots of football, and he will likely be at the World Cup with Switzerland because they seem to like him as well. So, but yeah, was far better as a winger for Leeds than he was as a fullback, and this season been a bit part player for Werder. But talking about bit part players for Werder, let's talk about Max Wober really quickly. He's played 1 game this season. He injured his hamstring after their cup match at the first game of the year before they played a league game. Tore the hamstring off the bone. He was out until the end of December. Came back, played a game, tore his calf, which has been a real problem for him. He's got a contract at Leeds till the end of next year, 2027. You would imagine Leeds will just try and organise a mutual termination of contract here coming the summer because you can't see anybody taking him. He's got a very small option in the deal with Werder Bremen. They can take him for a minimal fee. His career's just absolutely fallen off a cliff since he came into Leeds. He was very good in that first spell for Leeds when he came in. So year he went down, but he was, of the players in the squad we had, he was probably one of the better players we had in the side that went down. But it's really, then he left the club, I exercised his contract, leaves the club. Everything else that happens afterwards happens. He's coming back to Leeds in the summer. There's no way Werder Bremen pick up that option to buy him because 1 game. He said recently in an interview that when he comes back after the international break, he should be good to go, and he has 5 to 6 games to give his all for the club. So his loan for an entire season will at best produce 7 games of football. If he's lucky.
That's of course that's a disappointment for the player because it's never good when a player is injured, and has injury problems. It's also a disappointment for us. To be very brutal, in this case, it doesn't help us because the value will drop even further. The mistake eventually was last season, I think, was it summer of 2024, because he was returning after that loan season that didn't put him in a very good light with the fans, especially because looking at when we went down, like you pointed out, Jer, it was all right. He was probably the best defender compared to the ones they were playing next. Because he was playing next.
He was trying.
Yeah, he was trying. He tried to. He valued the opportunity to play in the Premier League. At one point, he was playing next to Rasmus Christensen when Christensen was moved to the back line, not from the wing. Then we had also Ailing covering at centre back that season. Robin Koch was not doing well that season, was struggling with the physicality. Then Llorente went to Roma. It was a complete mess. So the only one that was trying to, apart from Ailing, of course, was actually trying to perform, or at least showing some positive signs, was Wober. But then the summer arrived. There was that picture, that leaked picture of him. People were saying, Wober is staying. And that was that picture of him with the armband, in that friendly behind the scenes against Barnsley. I remember. I think we won
Yeah.
8-0, something like that.
Yeah.
That day. Then they made him do the pictures and the video for the kit, and then he has to leave. And he exercised the long clause and moved to Borussia Mönchengladbach. Had a
Yeah.
decent season. Then we needed to capitalize to seize the moment then when he returned and lower our asking price and sell him, honestly, because right now he had a season last season when he didn't basically play.
Yeah.
When he played, I want now it has come up to my mind again, but I'd forgot about the game at all. That horrible night when Melia made the mistakes, when Wober was struggling left and right, playing as a left back basically. But that season hasn't helped us. Last season hasn't helped us at all with Wober because now he got injured. He will return and it will be very, very difficult. I agree with you. It will be very difficult to sell him or loan him out. So mutual termination of contract will be the ideal scenario. The problem is that he has a very good contract signed under Horta when he arrived in 2023, a 4-year contract. So it will be difficult. Patrick Bamford, there's only one Patrick Bamford, not every player is a Patrick Bamford when you eventually reach an agreement to terminate the contract. There are also other players where they say, I'm on good money, I don't want to do that. I remember I watched Sandro Until I Die, on Netflix. There were players that eventually agreed, and there was another player, Jack Rothwell. No, not Rothwell, sorry. Rodwell. Not Joe Rothwell, of course. Rodwell, the former Everton and Man City, but they eventually had to terminate, cancel the contract eventually because they went on for months battling with him, because of the contract that they signed when they were in the Premier League, a lucrative one. So we'll see what type of individual Wober is if there's no club interested in him, because we need to try to terminate the contract or try to sell him. Will be very difficult to find a buyer, because otherwise the other solution to keep his wages off the books is a Robin Koch 2.0, and that means loan with no money at the end of the season, and he goes on a free at the end of the season and find his pace again, and eventually gets called back to, in this case, Austria, and Koch has reached the regular for Germany now.
I don't even see that happening. I'm looking at his injury record, and even when he was at Salzburg, I mean, he missed 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 23, 24, 35 games in 3 seasons at Salzburg. Then we bought him. And then at Leeds, he missed 4 games with a hamstring injury the season that we were in, that 22-23. Then he goes off to Gladbach, misses 2 games with an illness, 2 games with an infection, 1 game with a fitness issue, 1 game with a muscle problem, 4 games with a torn muscle issue, comes back to Leeds last season, has 10 games out with a knee surgery. Then he comes back and has an unknown injury for 3 games, and then he's out again for 10 games with another knee injury. That's 23 games he missed last season. Then this year, 12 games he missed with a hamstring problem, comes back, 2 games out again, and then back out again with 10 matches. So he's missed so much football in the last 3 seasons. You can't see anybody looking at a player who is, what is he now? 28 years of age.
Yeah.
With that injury CV and thinking, we'll throw a few million quid at him. So if we can't offload him for nothing, I think you're right. It'll be a loan with a free at the end.
Yeah. We'll have just one hope, that these 7 games that he's talking about will
we need prime Lothar Matthäus at the back for him to get anyone to pick him up in those matches. He's gonna have to play out of his skin.
Yeah, we'll try to get called up by Austria for the war. It will be very, very difficult now because they have, of course, other players. There's a good one at Elche, David Affengruber. I think he will move to a big club next summer. But at least, even as a reserve, maybe, the stars will align and he will play at the World Cup, then his value will...
Oh, fingers crossed. We're back into miracle territory here now, Andrea.
Yeah, exactly.
We will see. Let's see if he gets fit. We're running out of time, so really quick, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Harry Gray. He's having a fine time at Rotherham. He's getting kicked around the place, and that's all he needs to get from this is minutes and get used to the physicality of men's football. Got 2 goals. They are in the relegation zone. A lot of these players that have gone out are in the relegation zone with teams. Sheffield United looking at maybe bringing him in next season, which I think would be a smart move for him next year to go and play in the Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. It will be a very smart move because, of course, he will still be in Yorkshire first.
Correct.
Very young. He will have players that he already knows there, probably. Looking at the Leeds contingent, at Bramall Lane, if they are still there, of course. Wilder, I remember when he developed David Brooks, for example, so it works well with some young, exactly, with young players. People look at the table. I think we don't need to look at the table. We just need to play minutes and play senior football.
Right.
Don't repeat what happened with Matteo Joseph, Sam Greenwood, all these players, Luis Bate, that eventually stayed at Leeds. Diogo Monteiro probably is the perfect example. Stayed at Leeds for 4 years, 3-4 years, and never played a minute of senior football. Never went out on loan. So yeah, I think he had probably problems. Muscle, I don't know. I read something. I think
dead leg. He should be okay for the weekend, though, but the dead leg.
Okay. Yeah, but absolutely fine then. So yeah, you just need to keep playing, and he already scored 2, I think, in the first 3. So now he needs to get back in form, and these goals will help him to find a club in the Championship next season. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's the right move from him, unless we go down, in which case we'll need him in the Championship. So, Andrea, you're close to this one. It's been a weird. Just again, we'll try and keep this one as brief as we can. Try and get this pod under the hour mark if we can. But Jack Harrison's loan's been strange. It seemed to start off relatively well. He's got a goal and an assist between the cup and the league. His accurate crossing percentage is at 13%, which I don't think will surprise anybody at all. And he was heavily criticised by the Italian media this week for again, poor crosses and lack of involvement in the game. There's an option to buy. It's a small option in his contract as well. Ignore that estimated £8 million value, because that's not the option. I think the option is like 4.5 or 5 million or something like that, if even. Are we looking at another Jack Harrison returning to Leeds in the summer, or do Fiorentina actually exercise this deal? Because they are 17th in Serie A, 1 point above the relegation zone. If they go down, they're not buying Jack Harrison.
Yeah, I don't think they will. Because first and foremost, there's a rule in Italy where you cannot have extra EU players in the second tier unless you get them. They are already registered from the season before permanently, or you get them from a Serie A club. So they were already in Italy. Maybe they'll change the rules, but anyway, if Fiorentina went down in 1993 when they had Batistuta and Effenberg, they can go down this season. Yeah, they eventually went back up. They can get down this season because it's absolute mess. Also, the president Commisso has passed this season, so now his son is in charge of everything. They say he's very different. It's different from his father and how he runs the club. But Jack Harrison, he's been heavily criticized. Yes, he's now playing because Solomon got injured. So you see that there's always that little link, But yeah, I have some friends that support Fiorentina, and when I still had my Twitter account, I was checking the comments after every game to see also the opinions. I also watched some games, Fiorentina. There was a picture of Harrison looking at the stat of the crosses of Harrison with the Timberlands instead of the football boots. He's sending crosses with that, so they don't have an high opinion of him, and Fiorentina are a mess because they were playing well with the back 3 with Vanoli. Now they are criticizing him because he has reverted with a back 4. Harrison has played better in the Conference League, but in Serie A he's really struggled because in Serie A we like dribblers. He'll did at you, Valeao. He's not a dribbler, so they had just got him for crosses, and as you can see, 30% of crosses. So I don't think he's playing just because Solomon is injured right now.
Oh, God.
So again,
we'll see the summer, Jack.
Yeah. It's like a butterfly effect. Butterfly effect. Every summer there's this. Where does Harrison go?
Yeah.
MLS.
But that seems to be, again, he'll have 1 year left on his contract come the end of, 28. He's got 2 years left on his contract. So, and again, he is on paper Leeds United's highest earner on salaries. So that tells you the kind of contracts that Victor Orta was dishing out before we went down. So he's costing Leeds money. They need to get him off the wage bill. Now, if Leeds get relegated, his loan release clause kicks back in again and he can do what he wants, but he's running out of clubs and opportunities at this stage. He's had 1 goal involvement in 3 years, 2 seasons, 3 clubs. So it's not going to be easy. Wouldn't mind. I think the Fiorentina kit suits him perfectly. I think Florence was a great move for him. I thought we'd all tick lots of boxes. I like Fiorentina as a club. I've always liked them. I hate to see them down the bottom of the league, but every now and then Fiorentina do this. They go through these mad spells, but they just drop like a rock and then sort themselves out and come back up again and then do well for a couple of years and then drop again like a rock. So, yeah, we'll have to see. He's got a couple of games left, and we'll see how he finishes the season.
We'll see. I don't like them honestly as much because of course they were historical, and they have a lot of pressure. And I think eventually when foreign players, especially from the UK, move to a club like that, even Tariq Lamptey moved there last summer, but he's always been injured this season. So it's difficult when you move to Florence because they have a different mentality. They still think they are a top club.
Yeah.
When they are not, and they pretend to get UCL football. So like they reached 2 finals, actually 3 finals, because when they had Vincenzo Italiano, now the manager of Bologna. So they reached the Coppa Italia final, and they lost against Inter Milan, and the Conference League final against West Ham that they lost in Prague. The next season they reached again the Conference League final in Athens, and they lost against Olympiacos. So they were criticizing him, Italiano. Eventually, Italiano moved to Bologna because he had enough of the criticism. Yeah, pretty good best seasons they had in years. Moved to Bologna and straight won the Italian Cup. Palladino last season did well at Fiorentina. They didn't have a great squad, to be fair. They didn't have a good squad, a great squad. Had a good season. They were criticizing him, and the fans asked him to leave. At the end of the season, he left. Atalanta got Ivan Juric, the former manager of Southampton. They didn't start well, They got Palladino, and they were basically lower the lower end of the table, mid-table, lower end. Now they're just outside the European places with Palladino. So you see, at Florence they haven't made the right decisions,
Stop letting the Fiorentina fans make decisions on the manager.
Yeah, exactly. They still think they are under Dante. They still think they are like from the Renaissance. They think big city, big club. Yes, on paper they are a big club like Leeds, for example, but you need to have a proper team to compete for Europe. If you don't have the players, you cannot expect to get Europe, but they still expect it. That's the reasoning.
Look at the history of it. As long as I'm supporting football, and again, as a kid, I always had a club in every league, and Fiorentina was the club because again, Battistute every week, they were all playing for. I love that. That was an incredible side. But they have this in them where they do really, really well for a couple of years and then thump, they're gone. They're relegated and they're back up again and they're doing well and then thump, they're gone again. And it's similar to Leeds in one sense of they could probably do it a decade of like mid-table Serie A football and just stabilize themselves without having the highs and lows the whole time along. Not that they're completely comparable, they're not. But yeah, it's an interesting. We'll see how he gets on the next couple of weeks anyway before the season wraps up. We'll cover him every weekend on Loan Watch anyway moving forward. But Andrea, massive thanks for taking time out of your schedule tonight to join us. Really appreciate the detail you bring to these podcasts as well, and a massive thanks to everybody who has been watching tonight as well. Andrea, anything you want to leave us with before we head off?
No, just a good luck for the game that we are edging towards, because I think even a point will be good, honestly. I'm playing conservative, but I think even a point will be a good one, And a message to Spurs: let's keep Igor Tudor in charge. Yeah,
he's doing a great job. Leave him alone, lads. He needs time. Give him the time he needs. He's turning an oil tanker around. Give him another, I don't know.
Give him time.
9 games. See how he gets on. Yeah. Anyway, folks, massive thanks. As always, you can support us by hitting a like and subscribe on the channel if you want to, or follow on the audios. And you can check out all our affiliate links down below if you want to support us that way. You can. Outside that, I'll see you tomorrow morning for the news. Enjoy your evening. Talk to you later. Bye.